أهلا، أنا نادين سمرة ومعكم بيوميات مدير عام بودكاست.
My guest today is the CEO of Delinea, one of the leading US companies in cybersecurity and identity protection. He has held senior leadership roles at Symantec, Broadcom, and many innovative startups. And today, he leads Delinea's mission to secure privileged access for organizations worldwide. In this episode, we'll dive into his leadership journey, the future of cybersecurity, and the lessons he has learned about guiding teams through change and growth. Art Gilliland, what's your story? شو قصتك?
Thank you very much, Nadine. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here with you as well. We, just to let the audience know, we already had a wonderful conversation before our start. So I don't know from where to start with you.
So we were cheating already.
Yes, we did. I already know a lot of interesting things that we're going to be sharing with you for sure. So the first thing that I want to start with, maybe, I don't know, from your university time?
Yeah.
What did you study?
Okay. So I grew up in Los Angeles, area, and then I ended up going to school, university in Minnesota. So if you know the U.S. geography very well, California is like very hot and warm, probably not as hot as here in Dubai, but warm. And Minnesota is very cold.
Okay.
And so I ended up going to Minnesota for college, and I studied economics. So I was really interested in economics. I studied religious philosophy. And so I spent time just sort of following the things that I thought were interesting and fun, and for me, I really liked math, and economics felt like math with a reason.
Yeah.
And so I graduated from Carleton after being involved in American sports and then academics, and then joined a consulting firm, and that was my first professional experience outside of college.
Okay. How was it? Was it easy for you as a fresh graduate to find your first job? That's a question, by the way, that I get a lot from people.
Yeah.
How can we land our first job?
Yeah, I will say at the time the economy was really good. So I graduated from college in 1993, and so the economy was pretty good. And so a lot of my friends had a pretty easy time getting a job.
Yeah.
And so I joined this consulting firm, and I would say, some of it was you have good grades and you work hard, and I was involved in sports, and so I had a bunch of different kinds of activities that were part of it. But I interviewed a lot. I didn't get every job I applied for sure. I probably applied for, 15 jobs, and I ended up having 2 that I could choose from at the end, 2 or 3. And I chose to go and do consulting with this company at the time called Gemini Consulting. Which has now evolved into Ernst & Young through a whole bunch of different acquisitions. And so I worked at that company for about 4.5, 5 years before going back to school again. So I went back to school to get a master's degree in business.
MBA?
And so, I got an MBA at Harvard. So I started in 97 and graduated from Harvard Business School in 1999. So,
Right.
And then back into work again.
So at that period of time, you left the work. You just focused on
I
your
took
studies,
2 years
was it?
off, and took 2 years and went back to school. And so, when you take part of going back to business school, usually in the United States, is you work first and then go back. Most people work for 2 to 3 years. I ended up working for almost 5 years. I found I just loved my job. I've always liked work and liked what I've done, and so I think part of it I stayed just a lot longer because of that. And also the work that I was doing was really interesting. It was at the beginning I did sort of general analyst things, crunching away on spreadsheets and doing the things that all sort of new grads figure out how to do. But after a year and a half or so, they brought me into a group called Innovation. And so we spent a lot of time working with university professors and their ideas, and then taking those ideas and trying to turn them into consulting products. Okay. And so that was kind of my first experience as a product manager. Here's a theory, here's an academic thing, and can you actually turn this into something that you can practically use in business, and what are the tools you use, and how do you build it, and what are the features of it? And so I spent 3 years or so working on a couple of different things. And actually one of the things I worked on was the beginning of AI, if you will. It's called decision support. We called it performance innovation, but it was talking to experts, trying to understand how they make decisions, and then trying to write software that basically helped to bring the right kinds of data at the right times for humans to make better decisions. Super interesting part
Very
of work. And so I love doing that. That was like before going back to business school again. And so that was a lot of the journey at the beginning, just sort of following the things.
So why did you take the decision to go to the business school then?
I wish I would say that it was a super well thought out thing. I think it was more just I was kind of told by my mentors that you're supposed to do that.
Okay.
And so it was kind of the pathway you're supposed to go down if you want to sort of reach the higher ends of business. I'm not sure that's necessarily true anymore, but at the time in my path, that was definitely the way my mentors thought we should do it. And so a lot of people in consulting do consulting first and then go back to business school, and it was kind of the step that you were supposed to take.
Okay.
Now, granted, you're supposed to do it after 2 years, and I spent 4 years, so
Yeah.
it was. So I had a lot more experience when I joined business school than a lot of my peers did.
Okay. And do you think nowadays it is a requirement or is it a plus? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, there's a lot of things that you learn there. I mean, because I was what's called a liberal arts education at the beginning, a lot more theory, not super practical kind of work. It was mostly teach you how to learn in undergraduate. I think business school had a lot of very practical things like accounting and finance that is super useful, and you definitely use all the time in my job today. And I didn't have any of that education in undergraduate, and so I think there are some definite things there. I think the biggest thing for me is the friendships and the network and the connections. I think that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Is it necessary for work? I don't think it's necessary. I think it's valuable. And I definitely think, especially when I was being promoted in the big companies, when I worked at Hewlett Packard or Symantec or getting hired into, new big jobs, having it on your resume, I think is meaningful. It's meaningful because it's a validation that, okay, this person works hard, they're smart, they've been successful. It's kind of an interesting part of business school is, they want to accept you if you don't need them. So you kind of help each other. My brand and their brand all get together, and there's some benefit there. But I learned a lot. I loved it. I thought it was great. I felt very honored to be accepted and be there, and so I think I got a lot out of it for myself personally. And I'm happy where I am, so I don't know what my life would be like if I hadn't gone, so here I am.
Absolutely. What was the biggest highlight when you were in the Harvard Business School for you?
I think it was just the interaction with my peers and the professors, like how connected you can be with your professors. These are famous, academic thinkers. They write books that you see in the bookstore, and you're in a class, sometimes 25 people in them, and so there's just this real sort of intellectual engagement, which I loved. And part of my personality type is I try to spend time with the things that I really care about and I really like, and so I've always loved my job. And when I stop loving my job, I leave.
Okay.
And so this was just that kind of experience for me. I just felt really energized by the thinking, by the people, by the relationships that I made there, and so I loved it.
What do you mean by loving your job? What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means that you get energy from it. So when I'm working, I am excited about what I'm learning and doing, and the conversations I have with customers and working on solving their problems. And I'll tell you a silly story about why do I love cybersecurity so much? Like, what is the thing? So I currently have 19-year-old twins. They were much younger, obviously, when I started this work, and so when my twins were 5. Your kids always ask you, like, what do you do? Like, what's your job? What do you do for, they want to kind of know what you're leaving all the time. Like, what is it you're doing when you're gone? And so here you are, I'm trying to tell my son at the time, here is like what I do. And, you can be all super technical and geeky because I was building security products, but you try to make it simple. And so what I told him is, we build tools so that companies can protect themselves. And like, well, he asked me, well, who are they protecting themselves? Well, there's criminals out there that are trying to steal things from these companies, and so we build tools that help them. And so I help the companies protect themselves. And he, it's 5-year-old, so he's like thinking about, well, what does that actually mean? He's like, oh, you're like Batman. I'm like,
wow.
Yes, I am Batman.
Amazing.
I am Batman. I'm out there finding the bad guy. And so, that kind of sums up like why is it so why am I so passionate about it? I love it because I feel like, the work that I do is actually meaningful. It helps the companies protect themselves and the world go around. And so it's more than just sort of building and selling software, which is obviously what I do, but it's but you're out there actually trying to help companies protect themselves and help people protect themselves. And so, I got to be Batman for my son, and that's pretty cool. So
Wow, I'm meeting Batman today. That's amazing.
Here it is, Batman, right here in the without my costume on.
Yes. Amazing. So what you said right now, it's more of a mission. Is this your personal mission or the company's mission that you normally work for?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously for me personally, it's something that I've really cared about. And so a lot of the companies that I've worked at, I bring that energy to those companies. But it's what they do also. I mean, a lot of people in cybersecurity, that's why they do it. I mean, obviously there's a lot more business people that are coming in because the market's so exciting. And so some people are doing it because it's just good business and there's a lot of demand for it. And so there are some of those too. But I would say, the vast majority of people that work in this space actually do it because they really care about it. Yeah. And so when I went to work at Symantec or when I went to HP or when I worked in the startups that I worked at, you're surrounded by people that really care about that. And that makes it fun.
Yeah.
Right? And that makes it fun.
Yeah. But you started your studies in economics. So
Yeah.
did you have like a plan, or did you know that you're going to be switching or going into IT at that point of time?
No.
What happened? How did you?
I joke that I've been working in this industry now for almost 30 years. And I joke that I tripped over it on accident at the first company that I worked at. And I think that that happy accident is part of sort of how I've sort of managed, quote unquote, managed my career. And one of the things I tell new employees or new workers or kids in college that are trying to figure out what they want to do, and I try to tell my kids, my kids would listen to someone else before they listen to me, although their friends listen to me, is, you talk to, I talk to these young people, and what I say to them is, do something that you're really excited about, because then you'll be good at it. If you love what you do and you're doing something that you care about and you're interested in, you'll be good at it. And if you're good at it, you'll get more opportunities. Yeah. And so I think for me personally, I've just kind of followed things that I liked. And because I liked them, I spent more of my time in it. I spent more of my life energy on it. And so that happy accidental path has kind of taken me from one job that I thought was interesting to another job that I thought was interesting. And because I liked it so much, I spent a lot of my energy and time on it, and I was good at it, and that gave me more opportunities to do something new or something different, or you get promoted or those types of things. And so I've kind of followed that path, to be honest. And it started in college, and I just did a bunch of stuff that I thought was fun, and so I was good at it, and moved on to the next thing. And that's. I wish I had this is the plan, this is how you should do it, but other than that, that's kind of true. That's just how it happened.
Yeah. But I feel that there's something more into the character of the person as well, right?
Yeah.
That will help you shape your future. That's probably is accidental sometimes, as you mentioned. But there are some characteristics in you that made you go a specific way.
Yeah.
Do you agree with
I mean,
that?
I think that's true. I think you follow the path that you're excited about. And so for me, I wanted to help people. I like to work with folks. I like to... I really, as a personality type, I really want to know how things work. And so I spend a lot of time trying to understand the system, if that makes sense. And so when I'm talking to a customer or when I'm talking to a partner, I really want to understand their business and how their business works, and then what their challenges are. And then because I know our solutions, or I know how our products work, then it's the game of it is to try to figure out how these pieces fit together to make everything work better. And I think that for this type of job, I think that's super valuable. And so for the kinds of things that I was doing in product management, it was understanding and really understanding deeply their problem, how their systems work, and then the things that I have, can they help? And I think that combination of wanting to try to solve problems and try to help, and then trying to really understand the system, I think those two personality traits for sure for me has been what's driven a lot of the work that I've done and the different opportunities that I've had.
So I'm going to take you back to Harvard.
Okay.
You're done with Harvard now. Now you are an MBA graduate.
Yeah.
What did you next?
What did I do next? Yeah, so I had a couple of different opportunities. One of them was to go work in investment banking at JP Morgan. That's what I spent my summer doing. And I really enjoyed being in the investment banking. And again, it was math and problem solving and trying to get deals done in the M&A side of their business. But I fell in love with somebody. So my wife was an attorney, and so she lived in Boston, and so I felt like if I went to New York and worked in investment banking, and she lived in Boston, we wouldn't see each other that often. It would be very unlikely that we would stay together. And so I also looked for jobs in Massachusetts, and ended up finding a job very similar to the kind of work I was doing in consulting, where it was a couple of different professors had come up with this idea for what's called value exchange. And so it was the early parts of direct marketing. And so it was like, what's valuable to you as a customer, what's value to me as a business, and can we trade things? And so I went to work at this company called Exchange Solutions, which, sent a bunch of junk mail, basically. Okay. But behind all that really valuable junk mail was an algorithm that we created to try to decide, okay, what kinds of offers are most interesting to our to the customers that are going to drive better value for the companies that we worked for. And so I went and spent about 3-4 years working at that company, running their strategy and then also working with customers directly. But I stayed in Boston because of that. And Brigitte and I got married and then had kids. And so Massachusetts, I stayed in Massachusetts to sort of go back that life. And, back to following the things that are meaningful to you. I think this is the other thing I tell people is there's always got to be a trade-off between your personal and your professional life. And you can optimize for one, but at the end of the day, what does success mean to you as a person? And for me, it's always meant a balance between those two. And so that was my first example of like making a decision to go away from a career path that I think would have been extraordinarily successful, and obviously investment bankers make a lot of money, but that's not the only thing that mattered to me. And so I chose to stay in Massachusetts because
so it was a decision both.
It was a life decision. Okay. Yeah, it was a life decision.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wanted to part of what we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary last weekend.
Congratulations.
So thank you. And so it was she's been my life partner for a big part of my career. Part of I think the background of my success is because she manages all the other stuff. So all I have to do is think about work. But that's a partnership that you do, right? And so you also have to commit. And I think one of the interesting things that she taught me is what she told me at least anyways, is I don't have to be first all the time. I just need to be first sometimes. And so I try to make sure I'm paying attention to when is it that she needs to be first. And obviously at that time when I was thinking about going to New York or staying in Massachusetts, that felt like a time that she needed to be first. And so that's why I chose that.
Yeah. I feel that got translated into, now I'm moving into Delinea.
Yeah, of course.
And I know that you do a lot of remote work. Am I right?
That's kind of the world now after COVID, post-COVID.
Yeah. Is it related to how you feel about the work-life balance as well?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, I think the reality is I would prefer to be in the office working. I think the interactions you have with people, I think this conversation is much better sitting face to face than we could. I mean, we could do this same interview like me on a laptop and you on a laptop, and it's just not as good. I listen with my ears, but also with my eyes, and you sort of feel people, and in particular in leadership positions, like your relationships with all the people that you work with are important, and it's how you drive culture. It's how you get the people to feel your energy and your excitement too, and it's just very difficult to do that remote, in my opinion. I'm a dinosaur because I grew up in the world where you actually go into the office 5 days a week, and I don't think that's necessary either. I do think a blend of time in the office and time remote is there. I think the way that I've balanced work and life is I set the boundaries for myself, because work will take all your time.
Yeah.
And I could work 24 hours a day, because being a CEO, you're kind of you're married to your family, but you're also married to your job. You're married to your company. And so I think there is a balance that you do. And so I tried to make it a physical boundary, where I didn't take calls at home. When I got home, I put my cell phone actually in a box. And so, especially when you have small kids, they just don't understand. And so you come home and, they're excited. They run and like smash into you at the door. And I wanted to be present and be there. And I think, again, back to what makes you effective at work and makes you effective at home is if you're 100% present. And so when I'm at work, I think about work. And so when I'm traveling and I'm doing this, like, I'm working all the time, and we're really focused on sort of the things that are here. And when I'm at work, I'm very focused at work. And when I'm home, I'm focused at home. And so you try to be as present as possible, because that's what makes the interactions meaningful. That's what makes the engagement. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. But still, I'm curious about your decision to keep the remote work happening in your current company.
I think I don't want to fight with our team.
Okay.
So, I mean, there are some things where you, as a leader, you set the tone and you push. And so I've always been a personality type that leads by example. I do. And so I'm in the office 3-4 days a week. I think the reality is the current technology workforce is that's not what they want to do. And so I think a lot of big companies are forcing their employees back to the office. And I think it gives us an advantage, because I think very talented people want the flexibility. And it doesn't mean they don't want to come into the office. I think we still get, we still have offices all over the world, and people come in and they engage and they're collaborative. I know we have a great office here in Dubai, and people go and work together. And I think that's super. But also, people have things that they need to manage. Like, you'd be home and somebody's delivering an air conditioner or a refrigerator, or you need to fix something, or your kids are homesick. And so how do you manage all of that? And I think remote work helps people manage their lives a little more effectively. And I trust that my team is working. I'm not one of those managers that feels like when you're not at home, you're not working. I do think people work because they care about the job and they care about Delinea, and it also puts a lot of pressure on us to be better managers, be better leaders, and engage more directly. And so I think it's inevitable at this point. I think it's going to be very difficult for big companies to force their employees back. And I think, you look at what's happening, at least in California, Google and Facebook, and they're all telling Amazon, and there's kind of a revolt. Yeah. Like, they're like, okay, sure, I'll come in, but then they don't, or they badge in, or they I don't want to be in that kind of battle with the team. I want to focus on the things that matter, which are our customers and the solutions we're trying to drive, and I just have to trust our team to do their job and do it in a remote way.
Yeah. So how do you create this trust? If I can dig deeper into the management style and leadership style that you follow, how did you create this trust between you and the management, and in all levels of whether management or employees in the company?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing at the beginning of COVID is like, well, how are the teams, how are the employees experiencing the office and work in general? How do they experience it? And the reality is when you're remote, your direct line manager is your experience with the company. When you can come into the office, if your direct line manager is not very good, there's other people, like there's scaffolding, if you will, around a building. There's like another manager, or there's your teammates or your friends, and so you can learn and you can develop that way. But when you're working remote, like it's a laptop and you're interacting with your manager, and that manager is sort of helping you experience the company, and you might have interaction with other people, but it's hard to build friendships that way. Yeah. And so we've invested a lot in first line managers. And so, because that first line manager has to be really good. And so a lot of skills, a lot of like, how do you do one-on-ones? How do you, like just the basic stuff that you learn as a manager, you have to do those things. And so we invest a lot there. I think the other way is I talk a lot about it, and we do all hands calls, and it's kind of like an ask me anything. All hands call, and you know, people will ask you a lot of crazy stuff sometimes, and it's a little surprising, but they do, and I answer everything.
What's the craziest question
Well,
that
I
you
mean, whenever you go through an acquisition, and so Delinea was formed through like 4 different acquisitions of different companies. The first thing people care about is themselves, right when after that thing happens, and so they're worried about their salary, they're worried about stock, they're worried about all these things that are part of it, and so you're in these big like meetings with 500 people, and they're asking about their compensation or their pay or their job prospects or those things. And so, that's very junior, very sort of, it's a inexperienced thing to ask the CEO. You have the access to the CEO, and that's the question you're going to ask him about your, the bonus coming up. And so, but I answer it. I mean, I don't answer for somebody's specific salaries, but you answer the general question that they're really asking you, and you try to go through. So, and I think what that does is it builds trust, because they know they can ask you hard questions. Some of them are uncomfortable questions, like why are we, getting out of this office, or why are we closing? And I'll answer those questions too. Okay. And I think that builds trust, because then if you'll tell them the bad news or the hard stuff, then they trust you for the other things too. And so you just have to build trust through authenticity. You have to build trust through telling people the truth, even when it's not very pleasant. And so I think that's how I try to do it.
I'm thinking about the hierarchy when it comes to the company.
Yeah.
Which area of the company do you think, or in the hierarchy itself, you think is the most important one for the failure or the success of the company? Here we're talking about, technology, technical people, hands-on people, sales, and then we're talking about management, senior management, directors, and so on. So,
look, in software, there's 2 things that matter. That's right. And it's a multi-layer question you asked me, so I'll try to answer different parts of it. So in software, there's 2 things that really matter. You either buy it, you either are selling it, or you're building it. That's it. You build product or you sell it. Everything else is a support function. Everything else is supporting either the build or the sell. And so if you look at the structures that matter, obviously the things that really matter is the sales execution and all the supporting mechanisms there, and then also the product engineering side. And so you need to make sure you have good support and good leadership in those things. But the reality is the company's success is kind of built on every single layer of the management plane, and so it's hard to say which team is the most important for driving it, because my direct team, sets the tone for how the rest of the organization should interact.
Absolutely.
And so some of that starts with me. Most companies take on the personality of the CEO. Yeah. Most companies do. And it's, even when you go into a super big one, it may take a while because there's a lot of DNA that's built into the company over time. But if somebody is the CEO for a long period of time, their personality becomes that, because the way I behave sets the tone. It determines who I hire. It determines how they behave and what kinds of behaviors are acceptable. And so I think part one is, making sure I behave in the way that I expect our company to behave. I think the second is the leadership team working together in the way that's going to be most effective? Do we break down the barriers between ourselves? Do we have politics? Do we do that? And so there's a lot of work around sort of what's expected, what performance looks like at my direct staff level, because that sets the tone below. And then obviously each of those teams have senior leaders. So my direct staff has, senior vice presidents and others that own big parts of the company. The collaboration of those teams, because they really own the resources. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't really do anything anymore. Most of the work actually gets done deeper in. My job is actually to make myself as bored as possible so I can think about other stuff. Yeah. But the operating part of that is the senior VP level, and that team really has to collaborate and force the interaction. They have to feel responsible for the decisions, and so I think if I were to say, where does the hard work really get done? I think it's not me or my direct staff. It's that next level down, the senior vice presidents and vice president level. And they are driving a lot of the work and a lot of the collaboration, and they're needing to look out into the future. But, I would say 25% of their time is looking into the vision, and 75% is like looking into the org. And are we doing the things that the direction requires? And so, bringing those people in, making sure they understand the vision, making sure they understand what our expectations are, working the really hard cross-functional problems. I think that's where the magic in a lot of companies happens.
You talked about hiring people who you think would fit into the culture or the organization. Have you had a bad hire before?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
it's
inevitable.
Yes.
It's inevitable. I mean, it's one of those things where you can, sometimes it's not because they're not good and they're not successful. It's just they didn't fit, or they struggled to execute or perform in our company. And so, we had some sales leaders that had a good vision, had good thought about it, and just for whatever reason really struggled to execute. And so I think there's definitely those things that happen. We've had different kinds of folks. I obviously don't want to talk about individuals, but it tends to be either they're focused on the details too much, so they don't delegate enough, or they are not in the details enough. It's kind of this weird balance where, and I'll use myself as an example. My job at the company is to set the directional vision, set the priorities, and then hire a team to go and execute against that and to watch that. But you get to my job because you're a good operator.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is you need to balance between, am I operating or am I leading?
Right.
And so myself as a personality, I tend to delegate a lot.
Okay.
And so I set direction and I delegate a lot. And I think if I had a weakness in that, I don't get into the details, and things aren't working. I need to get into the details and really understand. And sometimes I don't do that. And if the team struggles, a lot of times they're not successful. Sometimes that's my fault. Ultimately it's their accountability and they're responsible. And so, and at some point, sometimes people just blow themselves up.
Yeah.
But it's also my fault too. So it's kind of a blend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. There's something very interesting that I would like to understand from you. So as a company, you have expanded globally.
Yeah.
And normally when you are expanding to other countries, it's not only expanding, creating a new office. It's about, understanding the culture and so many other things that comes into picture. Mm-hmm. So how was your journey when this happened? And what are the challenges? What are the things that people need to look at to make sure that they expand in the right way and they have the right considerations whenever this happens?
Yeah, expanding globally is hard. It's very, very complicated. And it's not hard to hire more people and do those things. What's hard is to make sure that when you're going into these new markets that the message is consistent globally, and and everyone is educated to the same level about what's happening in your company, and there is a consideration for the cultural and or market differences in those places. And so the biggest driver of success, in my opinion, around going international is communication, and making sure you're communicating a lot, way more than you think you need to. By the time you are bored of talking about it, they've finally just started to understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And so you have to continuously say the same thing consistently all the time. And so when I do presentations, I'm saying the same thing 25 times. That's the same presentation 25 times. I'm of course bored of that. I'd like to switch it up and change what I say. But the problem is by the time I've said it 25 times, then the farther away from the headquarters office, is starting to understand it.
Right.
And so that sort of super consistency over time is really important. The very fast flow of information, especially with SaaS products that change so rapidly, making sure that everybody knows what's going on. That's the how do you keep the company connected and aligned part of it. And I would say we do an okay job of that. We're not great at it. I mean, like, most software companies that are based in California, they like to say they're global companies, but they're actually California companies with global offices. Okay. And so,
yes.
and I think that's still true for us too. I mean, I wish it weren't, but even when I'm here, it's 11-hour difference right now.
Yeah. How's your jet lag, by the way?
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you since the beginning.
I feel good right now. I feel good. It's so different that I don't even think about it. But it's, it's 11-hour difference. And so, by the time this day is over, we're at dinner and like people in California are just waking up, starting to do their work. And so there's a natural sort of lag in sort of how you communicate. I think that's part of it. The other part is just, can you be responsive to the cultural differences? Can you be responsive to, different markets have different pricing requirements or different ways you have to work with partners. And I think that's where you try to hire locally and try to, and then have a lot of conversations and listen. And so, Mortada, who runs the Middle East business for us today, we spent all day yesterday because I need to understand sort of what's going on, and I can take what I learned from those conversations and that work back to headquarters and potentially hope make us more sensitive to the local requirements, whether it's an HR requirement, whether it's a marketing requirement, a partner requirement. And so I think I find for myself that, traveling and getting to the regions is the best way. And I really push my leadership team to also travel because I think you learn a lot when you travel. You learn a lot about the culture. You learn a lot about the situation. You get to hear directly from people. I think it's super important to do that too.
Yeah. What's the hardest thing when you are opening a new office in a different region?
Excuse me. I mean, I think the hardest thing if you're opening a new place is to hire the leader, because that person is your face there, and you need to be physically there to hire that person, so, like when you're going somewhere new, like we're opening a new office in Mexico City. We spent 2.5-3 months like interviewing and directly interacting with the people that we thought were going to be the leader for that business before you make that hire, because they're the ones that are really going to build the company. They're the ones that you have to trust to make the right decisions, and so you put a lot of trust in the leader of the region, because they're the voice back into the company. And if you make a bad decision, it can really hurt you. And I think when we have challenges in a region, it's almost always back to the leadership.
Yeah.
And so, again, that's back to it's our fault when you have a challenge in a region. And so, that's, I think, the hardest.
Yeah.
Like finding the office. I mean, that's all. Yes, it may take time, but it's not that hard.
People are
the people. I mean, my business is people. I mean, if you look at my expenses as a company, it's like 70% or 80% of my expenses are people costs. And so that's the heart of my company.
Yeah.
Like the value of my company is the teams and the people. And so it's almost always that. It's almost always that.
Yeah. And what do you do to propagate the culture that you are trying to create in California back into other regions?
Yeah.
That I think that's
how do you do that?
How do you do that?
Well, again, I think this is. I don't mean to brag about this, but I'm going to say it this way again. Like the personality of Delinea over the last 4 years has evolved. It is now my personality. I mean, it really sort of maps to sort of how do I behave, because I set the tone. Because everyone's kind of looking to the whoever the CEO is, whether it's me or somebody else. Like, what is acceptable behavior? What are the things that are allowed? And the companies go through a process of trying to write all that down. And so we did that too. So we have it written down. So our value statements, and we have the values that we talk about. But if those value statements don't align to me and how I behave, they are useless.
Right.
And so ours, very specifically, we have, it spells out word in English, strong, which I love. It's great. It's a great value sort of statement, but it represents spirited, trust, respect, ownership, nimbleness, and global. And so that is the way. And each of those represent a way in which we should be interacting and supporting and talking to each other. And so I need to live those values. If I live those values, then people will take their cue from it. And then we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm traveling and working with them. I need to hire people that care about those values and drive that culture into the company. And, I'm proud to say that, we're recommended as one of the best places to work, not only for in certain regions and certain offices, but also remote. And we win awards that are driven by our employees saying those things. And part of it is, if you are very externally visible in what your values are, and then you live those values, the people that work for you actually want that. They are aligned to it also. And if your culture is strong enough, then people that don't align will just leave. And so I think that they'll either leave because we ask them to leave, or they'll leave because they just don't align and they don't feel comfortable. And that's what you want. Yeah. I think that's what you want. And it's, look, the company Delinea is not for everybody, but if strong or the values that we espouse are meaningful to you, then this is an awesome place because we are going to live those things.
Yeah. So when you were at school, I'm going back.
Yeah.
What was your ambition? You really had this plan that at one point of time, I'm going to be the CEO of one of the leading companies in its space?
No. I know. I've sort of again, back to, this is going to sound silly, but I didn't look to the future and say, I want to be a CEO. My dad both my parents were marriage and family therapists, so they were psychologists. My dad was a minister growing up. And so I'm the only business person in our family. My brother is a fireman. My sister-in-law is a teacher. So I'm the only person who's really kind of gone into this world. And I would say, I didn't start thinking that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and be a CEO. What I did do is and the things that I liked a lot, I ended up being a leader in them. So I was a captain of the football team in high school, and in college, I was a captain of the wrestling team in college. And so I sort of took leadership roles, and I feel comfortable there. I feel comfortable making decisions, even when I don't have all the data. And people gravitated to that. And so you just, as a personality type, people just sort of gravitated to it. And so I was comfortable in it. I don't feel uncomfortable by it, but I didn't push for it. I wasn't hunting for it, if that makes sense. And so it was just a sort of a happy accident, if you will. And I ended up just getting into leadership jobs because I followed things that I really cared about and I was good at it. And then I never said no. If somebody said, you want to do this? And I'm, yes. You want to do that? Yes. And so all of a sudden, your job starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You just say yes to stuff. And all of a sudden you're running a business unit at Symantec, for example. I went from, having a team of, about 5 when I started at Symantec the first time after they acquired the company I was working for, to a team of over 1,500 or 1,600 just because I kept saying yes. And there's not a lot of software businesses that have that many people. And so if you look at the roles in the company, I think having a job where you're managing, 2,000 people, that puts you in a very small group of executives, to be honest. Yeah. And so then your opportunities just, again, saying yes and following the things that are there, your opportunities just get bigger and bigger. And I think that's kind of how I got here.
That's very interesting because there is a trend nowadays, I don't know if you've noticed on social media, that people tend to tell other people, don't say yes to everything. You just need to do what your job requires you to do. You need to say no to your manager. You need to say, this is my job. I'm just going to do it and bye. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to stay in that job for a long time. I've never bought into that model. I do think it's important to set to set boundaries. I think there's a difference between saying no and setting boundaries, and also setting expectations. And so one of the things that I think people should be doing is you shouldn't say yes without having some criteria, if that makes sense. And so if somebody asks you to do something new, you're saying, okay, I'd like to do that. Here's how much I can get done. If you give me more resources, I think I can get more done.
Okay.
And so part of what the process was for me is if somebody wanted me to do a new thing, it wasn't like just pile it on top. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to run that, but I need a team.
Right.
And so what you're able to do in that case is then you step up to the next level. And you're managing multiple things. You don't say no. You say yes, but I need more people, or yes, but I need more resources. You can't just, I can't just do more. Like at some point you run out of capacity. And so what I think people should be doing is understand what their capacity is, and then being super clear with management when they come and ask you to do more, that you have capacity to do X. If they want you to have more priorities, just what's the trade-off? Okay, I can do this much capacity as a single person. If you give me another person, I can do more work. And so I think it's navigating that people should do. But if you just say no, you're not getting promoted.
You're stuck.
You're stuck. You're going to do that job, because then they say, okay, this person wants to do that job. Like Art only wants to do that, and that's all he's going to do. Then I won't ask again.
Right.
Whereas I go to the people that do a good job, and then I ask them to do more, and they say, yeah, I can do more. And look, when you're in the early parts of your career, you are working harder. I worked way harder earlier in my career. I mean, it's a little bit of a joke, but like I think the hardest job is senior director in a company, because you are doing the work, you're running the teams, you're doing that, but you also are expected to start to be a leader and trying to figure out how to drive direction and set the context and that is the hardest job. I never worked harder in my entire life than I did as a senior director. And then you get to VP, and then you have senior directors that are doing a lot of the work, and then you're setting direction more. And then obviously the next levels is just running, your team is only really ever 7 or 8 people. Mm-hmm. So my team still is only 7 or 8 people. And so I manage 7 or 8 people. They just have a huge scope of responsibility now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yes. Yeah. So Art, what's your aspiration? What do you want to do next? Or
I love this job. To be honest, my sort of aspiration is to make Delinea as successful as we can and continue to do the things that we're doing here. I'm not looking for the next thing, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to use Delinea as a stepping stone. Okay. Delinea is the thing I love doing, and I will stay doing this as long as it's fun.
Where do you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean,
probably that's the right question that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I mean, the direction that I want to take it is like I'd love to continue to win. I want to be the most valuable identity security product for my customers. I want to be a trusted vendor there, and I think if you do those things, then the value of the company goes up. If I can retire from Delinea, that's my aspiration. Like I would love to be able to, continue to build the company. I'll, be $1 billion and then be $2 billion, and then get it, more and more in terms of revenue. We're currently almost 500 million in revenue, and so I'd love to double the company and then double it again. And I think that kind of growth is good for our teams. It allows us to serve more customers. But then I want to make sure that we've built enough of a bench of good, talented senior leaders that I can retire and give the job to somebody who works at the company. Yeah. And so if I can do that to me is success, because then we built something really enduring that customers care about and is delivering value. And then I can retire and ride motorcycles and do the personal things that I like to do. The personal things that I like, that and ride horses with my wife, and those are the things that I want to do personally. Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever really retire, but we'll see.
Yeah, we want to know about the biking.
Yeah,
you're a motorbike.
I'm a motorcycle nut. I love motorcycles. I actually have not owned a car. Our family has a car, so we had minivan when I was little. So it was always minivan or motorcycles for me, in terms of what kind of vehicle. But I haven't owned a car since 2012, and so I only ride a motorcycle. I drive back and forth to work and drive around. Obviously, when I'm in town on a motorcycle, I commute on one. And And I love them. So
Where did that come from? How did it start?
You know, I wish that again is one of those things. My brother was really into them when we were little, and he rode a lot of dirt bikes, and so he kind of got me into it because my dad doesn't drive a motorcycle either, so it's not from my family. Just my brother got into it, and I thought it was kind of fun, and so I started riding. And so since I was 16, I've been riding motorcycles. So yeah, and when you grow up in California, the weather is nice all the time. Yeah. So you can ride every day, which is another reason why I live in San Francisco now. But I love it because I can ride a motorcycle every day. And, you know, even when it rains, you just wear different gear. So
what's the type of your motorcycle?
So I have 3 different motorcycles today. I have a sort of mountain what's called an adventure bike, which you ride sort of road and on road, and so that's the one I ride the most. Okay. That's probably every day. I have a sportier bike that has I wouldn't call it a race bike because it's not quite like leaning over because I'm too old to do that now. It's like not very comfortable. So, but it does have it's more sort of sporty, and doesn't have any of the plastic on the sides. You can see all the engine, which I really like. Okay. It's a Triumph. It's called this Triumph Speed Triple. And then I have this crazy Russian motorcycle called a Ural, which has a sidecar. It looks like a 1942. Oh,
the one that has like
has a sidecar on it. Yeah. It's super fun. That's in movies. Yeah, it's like it looks like a movie, like a kind of motorcycle that you'd have in a movies. I used to take my kids to school in it, so nothing makes you a cooler dad than like rocking up in a sidecar motorcycle so to drop your kids off. So so I've got quite a few of them, and I like working on them. I like talking about them. I like riding them. So it's a side passion. So maybe that'll be something I do when I quote unquote retire. Okay. But yeah, no, I think the likelihood that I'll fully retire is probably low. I'll always sort of stay involved in it because it's fun. So.
Yeah. And what about your kids? Do they like bikes as well, like their dad?
So my daughter does mostly. My son is kind of indifferent, but my daughter really likes them. So she and I take road trips together and get to ride together. My son is, like I said, he's kind of indifferent about it. He'd rather do other stuff. And so, so she does. But she'll, of course, my kids are city kids, so neither of them know how to drive. So they're still early stages of that. But my daughter definitely takes road trips with me, and we've done, a couple of 5-day trips and some things like that together, which is really fun. Yeah.
You mentioned something about sports at school, and you were leading there as well. And then we talked about bikes. You talked about horse riding. Do you think this has any relationship with the leadership skills that you have developed over time?
Definitely the sports for sure. I mean, maybe the motorcycles and horses. I'd have to think a little more about that. That's more personality driven, and I can share some of that. But definitely the sports for sure. And I think in sports, especially when you're a leader in team sports, so I'll use football because wrestling is kind of a team sport, but not really. Yeah. And so in football, you play a position, and everybody has to play their position. And if they do that job, then the team is effective and successful. And so, and as a captain, you're kind of orchestrating the tone of the team, but everybody has to do their job, and you have a job to do too. Because you play a position. And so I think that definitely helps because you, as a leader in sports, you have to figure out how do you motivate a team of folks that they don't work for you. Yeah. They are following you out of respect. And that's true in work too. I mean, you can use the hammer and use your title and lead by fear, but that's never been the most effective, at least for me. Yeah. And so it was always about leading by example and sort of commanding respect. And I did that through sports, and you learn just a bunch of different personalities, and everybody has a different way that they get motivated. And some people will just watch you and try to beat you. And so if you push yourself, they'll push themselves because they just want to, beat you around the track or whatever it is they want to do. Some people you actually need to stand behind them and sort of drive. Right, and you're like, come on, you can do it. Like push, and that's true in regular work life too. Yeah. And being able to see and read that and really understand what drives and what motivates people, I think sports, at least in the U.S. for me, was a big part of like learning how to do that. and really appreciating it and sort of getting a better sense for it. And so you take those skill sets into your professional life because they're ingrained at some point. I mean, I played American football for almost 10 years. And so, by the end of it, that's a long time. Thousands and thousands of hours, working with, other folks in sort of a team way. And that skill set's just burned in. And so I do think that skill set, I think, is a really valuable one for work, for sure.
I always link motorbikes with the ability of taking risks.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think that's exactly how I think about it. And so it's, I look at motorcycles as kind of the analogy for security, if you will. And if you think about sort of business in general, like businesses have to do things that have inherent risk in them. Right, and so motorcycles have inherent risk. Drivers, and you're wide open, and so what do you do when you're as a company or as a motorcycle driver to, reduce the risk? You put controls in place. You put rules that you follow. And so if you look at the way I behave on a motorcycle, I have very specific rules that I follow in terms of how I ride and where I ride and what I do, and then I also buy mitigating controls. I wear a helmet, I have a suit, I have boots, and I have gloves, and I always wear those things all the time. Like even if I'm going to go a couple blocks, I always put all the stuff on. And I think that's just like work. Like that's just like businesses. Businesses have to do things that expose them to risk, but you can follow certain policies. You can put in rules that you can follow that help train your people to be more secure. You can make sure you do certain things that are like quality of care for your data and your information, and then you put in mitigating controls. You put in security products here and there, and to be honest, to me, it's like the perfect analogy for it, because I want to do these things. I want to ride a motorcycle. They give me a lot of joy, and I think people have to do the work. They want to do the work, and it gives them a lot of joy. But you got to sort of mitigate and control the risk, and you find that balance. And everybody's personality is different, of course. Some people decide motorcycling risk is not worth it, and so they just ride a car instead. But my own risk tolerance is just higher than that. I enjoy it enough that I want to be able to do that. And I think, as companies sort of go through the process today, like this, as you look at some companies that want to move to SaaS as fast as possible, they're investing in AI. Those companies tend to be more risk forward companies. And so they're going to push, they're probably more like the motorcycle rider. And then there's the companies that want to be on premise and really sort of try to protect themselves. They're driving a minivan, a Volvo minivan probably. So they just have a totally different like worldview of like how it should go. And I think that's, that analogy is there. So
Tell us more about Delinea. I am interested to learn more. I know already enough, but I want the audience to hear from you.
Yeah. So why did we start? Like, what was if you look back, so I worked at Symantec right before they got acquired by Broadcom. And then Broadcom came in and acquired the company and changed it pretty significantly. I mean, Broadcom runs software in a very different way. And so I spent a year at Broadcom, kind of restructuring and doing the way that they wanted to do it. And then after my tour of duty there, I decided it was time to take a break. Then I was going to try to figure out what I wanted to do next, what was going to make me happy. And so I was talking with a person named Tim Milliken, who is the partner who is the chairman now of Delinea, but he was a partner at TPG, which is our owner. And he said, why don't you come and be an advisor? And so Delinea was really born out of a conversation that he and I were having about what parts of security are the most do I think are going to have the most opportunity and all are the most interesting? And so the two parts of security where I am most excited are identity security and data security. And the reason that is if you look at most companies, most organizations, whether they're public or private companies or whatever, is they're going through a transformation where they're moving from owning their own infrastructure all the way to sort of being and consuming SaaS products. So it's on-premise, running your own data centers, using Azure, AWS, or Google for cloud-hosted infrastructure, or full SaaS. Like I'm just going to use Salesforce or use something else for infrastructure. And when you look at that, the security models for each of those three different kinds of infrastructure is just radically different.
Yeah.
The security model, when you have it on premises, you own everything. You decide it all, you build it all, you manage it all. In cloud, it's shared.
Yeah.
You know, Microsoft and AWS do some of it, you do some of it. In SaaS, you delegate it all and so the only place in those three worlds where you own the same policy no matter what infrastructure is around your users, whether those users are humans or machines, because you set policy on what is Art allowed to do on-prem, in cloud, and in SaaS.
Yes.
And the data, right? And the way you set policy in data right now is a little messy.
Yeah.
And so that didn't make a lot of sense, at least for a private equity firm to get into. And so we started looking at, what are the things that matter in identity security? And I've always really, I think of identity as in three different ways, three sort of simple ways. Authentication, which is I am Art, I can prove it.
Yep.
So user passwords or some way of proving that I am actually who I say I am. The next part is authorization, which is what should Art be allowed to do? So after he's proven he is Art, what should I allow Art to do? Right. That's where Delinea plays. And then there's the governance side of it, which is make sure that Art has a process for always updating and keeping his rights and entitlements, his privileges, if you will. And so we zeroed in on authorization, primarily because I think in the future world where more and more infrastructure goes to SaaS, you want to be able to understand what should Art be allowed to do in any of the infrastructures, and that there's a place for a centralized platform that allows companies to set policy on all their users, not just their privileged users, which is what we do primarily today, but all users. And then over time, maybe then you blend and merge all of those rights with an understanding of the data too. Art wants to do these things. Those things are going to expose certain types of data. And so I had this view or vision that we could create a platform for setting policy broadly on what should we allow the user to do, no matter what the environment was, no matter what the case was. And so that's kind of how we started, and that's the directional vision where we are. And so today we have built a platform for being able to set policy on all your users, whether those users are human users, which the vast majority are, and or machine users. Now, of course, agents. AI and agents and all of this, new fancy marketing stuff that everybody's talking about. Even my dad is talking about it, so it must be real. So I think that was the directional thing that we tried to do, and I think that's obviously what's the heart of our company, and our customers are trusting us to help them manage the rights within their user base, and so it's exciting. It's exciting to see sort of that vision go from where it was at the beginning, which is, our first acquisition was 60 million in revenue, and now we're almost 500 million in revenue, and so to see the company grow that fast in 4 years is pretty exciting.
Wow, that's definitely exciting.
Yeah.
But good. Have you seen it as well? I'm going to go back to this because I don't want to hear you telling me it's accident.
No, that's not an accident.
More than that.
This is not an accident. This
Tell
is
me
not.
More.
This is not an accident. This was very purposeful. This was a directional vision that we had as a company. Yeah. Like my career is an accident, an accidental sort of a journey. I would call it a journey. I wouldn't call it accident because there's always choices. You're making a choice. Do I do this or do I do that? And you follow the path that sort of, for me, it's always been follow the path that makes your sort of soul sing or heart, like the thing that speaks to you. This was a very specific strategy that we started with. It was a vision that we had at the beginning in conversations. And we had reasons why we bought certain products or certain companies. We acquired Centrify first, which was a company we acquired in 2021, because it had a certain asset that we wanted. It had this ability to do just in time. So like part of the view of our product is to say, I don't want you to have a bunch of rights until you actually need it.
Okay.
Like I'm only going to give you permission when you need it. I'm not going to, you don't just have permission by default. And so I wanted to be able to do that. And Centrify was really good at that. And then we needed a place for holding all your passwords so that when you needed those permissions, I could give it to you, but you wouldn't know what it is. And I would be able to change it and manage it. And that was the second acquisition we made, Thycotic. And so the vision was to, build up the broad capabilities we need over time. And so we have a map, and I still have a map of the next companies we need to acquire and the next capabilities we want to build and those things. And so we definitely, this is much more purposeful for sure. But that's how you do business. I don't think that's how you necessarily should do your career. I think it's hard to do that for your career because there's opportunities that come or don't. I mean, you can have a 5-year plan of I'd like to be able to have these skills and do those things, I suppose. Some people do that. I did not do that, but some people do. But for the business, it's very different. We have a plan, we have a strategy, we have meetings about it, we talk about like what's next, what are the things. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so there's a lot of experimentation that happens, which, if you do it well, you can learn and fail fast. And so we're constantly investing and practicing and failing and then changing direction. And that's absolutely true for how the company has been built, for sure.
What's the most exciting thing that you are looking for right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, look, the thing that I talk the most about with customers today is AI. And how are they thinking about using AI to drive their business value? And then what are the protections or what are the things that they need to be able to do that in a secure way? And I believe that the way in which AI is going to be managed and controlled and secured is through the identity. And so there's a bunch of work that we are doing to, one, be able to search and find AI inside of companies, because there's a lot of shadow IT AI that happens that security people don't know about. The company may know about it, but security doesn't know about it. And so they can't set policy, they can't secure it, they can't control it. And so it's like a lot of new technology, like the business adopts it and it jumps way out in front, and this IT security person is like chasing afterwards. And so I have a lot of conversations about that. And it's not just, can I build AI into my product? We're of course going to do that, and we're trying to figure out ways to make our product easier to use with AI. And we have 4 or 5 features that we've shipped already that actually are pretty significant. But the real value for my customers isn't that. That's cool, but it's not the real value. The real value is securing their use of AI in finance, or their use of AI in their own HR, or their use of agents to automate workflow or something. And so how are they going to manage and secure that? That's the area right now, at least, that is creating the most conversation that I'm excited about. And that I'm excited because it's unknown. Like, I would love to tell you I know exactly how I have no idea.
Okay.
Like, we're also experimenting. We're going to see, like, even the word agent means so many different things. And so being able to define what that is and how you're going to protect it and what you're going to, that's why I love my job. Like, you have competitors you're trying to win against, and you're trying to like build products to be better than them. But we also in this security space have an active adversary, like a bad guy who's also trying to attack us. And so you have these sort of 2 drivers of innovation in the cyberspace, which is, again, as a product geeky guy, that's where I came from. Like, I just so great. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Technology.
Yeah. That's IT.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's
the last
IT.
2 years were crazy. How did you feel about them with the AI and everyone talking about it? And
at the beginning, I'm. This is going to sound a little strange because I've spent my whole career in IT, but I will say that I'm kind of a cynic usually when it comes to these technologies and how quickly they're going to go. And I think, but I'm not that with AI. Like, I think. Obviously, AI has been around for decades, like at least the discussion around it and how you think about it. But I think the consumerization of it, the ChatGPT moment that occurred, has really sort of changed the adoption. It's made it more, it's consumerized it, like your cell phone, right? And how powerful the phones have become in the workplace. And I think that's true for AI too. It's just become so powerful. And so it's one of the things when your users can bring it into the organization and your users are making decisions about how it gets deployed and used, then security is going to have to catch up again.
Right.
And so I think that when I look at sort of the last 2 or 3 years, that's part of it. And then, of course, as bigger, more enterprise class companies like Microsoft and others started productizing it to make it more acceptable for enterprises to use. Because you have the consumer version, the ChatGPT versions, which are going to be sort of used sort of to help you write better email or whatever those things. But then when the enterprises pushed harder into sort of making it more company ready for security reasons or for other types of things, just the acceleration and the explosion of the use of the technology has been great. And then we use it ourselves, and you see significant, like we built this feature in the product that essentially is trained on our documentation and our product data. And when customers use that, when we delivered it to our customers, they reduced the support calls by like 60, 70%. So
Wow, that's a big
huge
deal.
impact. And it's a toy. It literally is like ask us questions about it. And obviously we've enhanced it over the last 2 to 3 years as we've sort of deployed it. But it's like you look at the type of impact that something simple like that's basically ChatGPT on my data. Like that is amazing, right?
Yeah,
and I think companies are realizing that the impact financially can be so significant that they're just going to do it. They're going to. And so, we're going to chase after and try to figure out how to help them find it and secure it and do the things that are going to, again, what kind of helmet do they need? What kind of gloves do they need to wear? What kind of like motorcycle suit should they be wearing? Because they're driving this motorcycle down the freeway at 100 miles an hour. They better put some gear on.
Absolutely,
and a lot of these companies are in that mode, right? Where they're just driving 100 miles an hour and they haven't put the gear on yet. And it shows up in our surveys.
Yeah.
Like we did an AI survey of like 1,000 different CISOs, and 94% of them said that they are investing in driving AI as part of their business, and only 40% of them said they had security controls available. So they're driving 100 miles an hour down the freeway without any gear on. I mean, that's just crazy. Like, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting from you the feeling that there is a big gap between how the technology, when it comes to AI, is developing and being implemented worldwide, and where the security measurements and even the security technology per se
That's correct.
is catching up. So what do you feel
Why
about
is that? Yeah, why? If you look, I'm going to geek out a little bit, just go back in history. If you look at all of the major platform changes that have happened, whether it was laptops, like you went from sort of centralized computing to PCs or mobile phones or cloud or like all those things, any sort of major change, Kubernetes, like when it went to containerization. What happens with the platform vendors is they spend all of their energy building the new feature set because it's such a new thing that there's a bunch of uncharted capabilities they need. And so to get the customers to use the laptop or use the SaaS cloud or use whatever, there's just a bunch of capabilities and features. And so they always prioritize new features over security.
Right. Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is to get these platforms to be established, the platform vendors like run like crazy on new capabilities. And so companies are looking at, okay, well, how do I use this? And do I want to use it? And, oh yeah, I'll use it, but you have to do these 2 features. So they do those 2 features. And security just almost always takes a back seat. I mean, thank goodness, because 30 years of my career has been spent sort of chasing those gaps. But AI is no different. In my mind, AI is no different. And so and what you see in security in general is these new platforms come out. The bigger vendors are looking at it. And so I'll tell you, like today, you look at sort of AI security today. And if you're a big vendor with lots of revenue, you're like, I need to have it needs to be a 10 or 20 or $30 million business for us to be super excited about it. But the reality is 95% of what companies are spending money on is the old stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So even though it's 80% of my conversations, it's a very, very small percentage of my revenue. And so the kinds of companies that are driving to secure it are tiny companies, they're startups. Right. You look at like tons of like agentic startups and all these, they're like 1 million in revenue, 2 million in revenue, but they're excited about that 1 or 2 million because they're going from 0 to 1 million. That's big, right? And so what ends up happening is these companies are pushing hard into AI. The only way to secure it is a bunch of little small vendors.
Absolutely.
And so the big vendors then are either trying to chase it and build it, or they acquire into it. And then you start to see like the larger companies start to drive, capabilities. And most security leadership don't want 5 other little products. They want their core vendors, their identity vendor, to just support it. Yep. And so I think that's kind of that's the stage we're in today, which is it's a mad dash. It's like a crazy race. A bunch of little vendors are trying to figure out how to solve this little thing and that little thing. And to be able to really secure, you probably need 6 of them. Yeah. And they're looking at us and saying, okay, Delinea, like, I don't want 6 vendors. I want you to build me the capability and figure that out. And so we're also trying to invest in and do that. And my guess is what'll happen is we'll invest down a pathway, and some of it will be right and some of it will be wrong. And we'll have to take what we've done and then acquire other stuff. And that's ultimately what is going to have to happen ultimately. And I think we're in very early inning still with AI, because it's evolving too. We don't know.
Yeah, very, very fast.
It's super fast. And, we went from, if you looked at the vendor, just technically, each of them have a way in which those AI models interact. And then Anthropic built something called MCP, which is like the standard API. And so then this, OpenAI and others just adopted that. Yeah. Well, there could be a new one like 2 years from now, and then everyone's go, oh yeah, actually that one's better, and let's move to that one. And like, so any work that you've done around MCP will be useless, and you'll have to go to this new thing. And so we're in that stage right now. This is like massive amounts of innovation, crazy changes. We don't even really know what we need, because we haven't really applied it all to the different use cases we think we're going to do. So, but it's fun. What
about people in the age of AI?
Yeah.
A lot of people are really worried and afraid that they're going to lose their jobs. What about that?
What's interesting is I sat, when my son comes home from college, he and I sat around a fire, and we were just, talking sometime in the evening, just looking out over the view and sitting around the fire. And so we started talking about AI, and he was really afraid. He's really nervous, and his friends are nervous about am I going to have a job, like all these entry-level jobs? And so it actually got me really thinking about like, what is it, how should we think about that career changes that are coming because of it? And I think what, as a company, we need to be investing in, and so we've spent time talking about it as a leadership team, is not just, use AI with experienced workers and really help make those experienced workers more effective, but what is the way in which AI is going to change the work? And then how do we train people to use it that way? Because I need to be able to hire, people right out of college and train them into how to use this stuff, so they can become productive members of our company and go forward. Because otherwise, if it's only experienced people that can use it, 10 years from now, we're like when those people retire, and 20 years from now when those retire, like the whole world is going to stop. Right. It'll be a little bit like, COBOL programmers or something for mainframes. Like it's very hard to find those people. And so I think that's going to be true here too. I do think it's going to be disruptive. It'll be like the Industrial Revolution, where certain jobs will not exist going forward, but a whole class of new jobs will come online. And so I think, just like any sort of transformation in the type of work that happens, you see it in software all the time, from a certain style of software development called waterfall to agile to now DevOps and pipelines. Like that's a radically different way to build software. People just have to learn that new thing, and some people will make that transition and some people won't. And I think that's going to be true with AI too. And so I think the forward-thinking companies will be building training and helping to get people up to speed, because they're going to need, we're going to need an army of people that know how to use it and know what to do. And so that's the jobs That's the jobs that I think, people out of college and even people in the company, like I'm having to retrain myself. Like, how should I do my job and how should I use AI to help myself be a better CEO? And I think if you are open to it and have a growth mindset in the way you approach it, I think there's a huge amount of opportunity for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Art, thank you so much. I had so much fun. I don't want to end that at all. You were so generous with us, with all the information that you gave us. We learned a lot. I learned a lot personally, and I'm sure people are going to find this very helpful and beneficial.
Great.
We learned about Delinea. We learned about you. We learned about how you can be successful in your life, have a work-life balance, how you can make it to be a CEO of one of the largest companies in its field. Thank you for this.
That was my pleasure, Nadine.
And hopefully I will see you soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Nadine. I really appreciate it.